Today, I'm going to explain why the latest New York Times/Siena College polls from the Rust Belt and the Sun Belt are going to be inaccurate. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe for more content just like this. And so, the polls that came out of the Rust Belt a couple days ago, almost about a week ago now, probably even more than that, had Harris winning Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania all by 4 percentage points respectively. The state of North Carolina, we can actually see right here, is fairly interesting because it actually has Donald Trump trailing by 2 points in the state. We can also see in Arizona, he's behind by 5 points. However, in the state of Nevada, Donald Trump is up by a single percentage point, and in Georgia, he's up by 4 points. Now, obviously, pollsters have their own methodologies and whatnot, but I'm going to explain to you why this result would not happen in a general election. It just wouldn't happen. And the reason for this is because there's something to understand called state trends. So if you were to look at the original 2020 results, you look at them on face value and you're like, oh yeah, Wisconsin's blue, Michigan is, blue, Pennsylvania, Georgia's blue, Arizona's blue. But there is something called the partisan leaning of every single state. And basically what that means is if you tied the popular vote, this is what the map would look like for 2020. So if you tied the popular vote for every single state in that election, you actually get the true partisan leaning of every single state. So for example, the state of Wisconsin voted to the right of the nation by 3.8%, Pennsylvania by 3.3%, Michigan by 1.7%, Georgia by 4.2%, North Carolina by 5.8%, Arizona by 4.1%, and Nevada 2.1%. So here's the interesting thing about the polls that came out. I already know they're going to be incorrect. And it's not even like rocket science to me. And obviously I've been doing this for years, so to me it makes a whole lot of sense. But the reason why I know these polls are not going to come to fruition in the results is because there's no way that the states are going to trend that fast in their own individual directions in order for that to happen. Because if you actually look at this, the state of Arizona, this is the part that doesn't make any sense. Arizona is Democrat +5, but Georgia is R +5, which would essentially mean that Arizona is voting to the left of Georgia by 9 points. That literally makes no sense because if you look here, you clearly see it's voting to the right of each other by like a ridiculous amount. And if you look at this, you could see Georgia is voting to the right of the nation by 4.2%, Arizona by 4.1%. So they're basically voting in line with each other. If you go to the partisan leaning of 2016, Georgia 7.2%, Arizona 5.6%. So here it only voted 2 points to the right of Arizona, probably even less than that. Georgia in 2012, Romney 11.7%, Arizona 12.9%. In this election, Arizona voted to the right of Georgia by like a point. In 2008, Georgia 12.5%, Arizona 15.8%. So this is the election where you saw the biggest difference, and this is mainly because McCain was a pretty good Republican candidate and really basically boosted his support in Arizona, and that's where he was from. If we look at 2004, we'll see Georgia 14.1 points to the right of the nation, Arizona 8. You see, this is the point in time where there was the biggest difference in the voting pattern. But you've seen, and then in 2012 points, 7 points. So even in the times where you've had the biggest voting difference in the individual states, it's only been 6 points. It hasn't even been 9 points at all. And this was back in 2000 and 2004. And slowly over time, the states have started voting closer and closer together. And now they practically are voting closer together at this point in time. So even in the time where you had the biggest difference between the polling, when you had the biggest difference, it was just 6 points. It wasn't even 9 points. So now they want you to believe that Arizona is going to vote to the left of Georgia by 9 points while the states have actually been getting closer in voting each other. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever at all. It makes no sense for that to even happen. The state of North Carolina is D plus 2. Just to give you an idea, North Carolina voted to the right of the nation by 13 points in 2000. Then in 2004, by 10 points. Then 2008, 6.9. And then here, 5.9 in 2012. 2016, 5.8. And then you had here 5.8 again. So it actually stayed completely stagnant between 2016 and 2020, but it took 20 years for the state to go from 13.3% all the way from 5.8%. It took a long time for the state to actually transform in that way. So this basically means if Kamala Harris were to win the state of North Carolina by about 2 points, she'd have to win the popular vote by almost 8 points in order for that to even happen. Kamala Harris is not winning the popular vote by 8 points. Or if we were to take the, second, the popular vote that we have, D plus 2, at face value, that means that the state would essentially have to trend 6 points to the left in one cycle after it basically has become stagnant. And usually when you see a state become stagnant like this, or it only trend a point left or a point right for a few cycles, that's when you know it's about to have a big shift. And I'm going to talk about that with Ohio and Iowa. I mean, if you look at Ohio, it was 4 points. Then here it was tilt. Then in 2008, it kind of like moved to the right. And then in 2012, it kind of moved back. So it was sort of like moving back and forth. And that's when you kind of know, okay, like a certain trend is stagnant. And then in 2016, it trended basically 10 points to the right in a single cycle. And then looking at this in 2020, it trended 2 points to the right. So the main shift was from 2012, 2016, but it still trended even further to the right. And I suspect that Ohio is going to trend to the right even more, probably voting to the right of the nation by 15 points. So there's really no way that the state of Ohio would even be competitive. So anyone who's telling you, oh my God, Harris is within 3, it's competitive, they don't know what they're talking about, because the way the state is voting relative to the nation, Harris would have to win the popular vote by 12.5 points or more to even have a chance at winning Ohio. And with the new trend, she probably would have to actually win it by over 15 to even have a shot to win it there. So that's just how you know that some of these people don't know what they're talking about. Even the state of Georgia, a 4-point win there means that the popular vote would actually not only, just to give you an idea, not only would the popular vote have to be tied, the state would also not have to trend anywhere. And more than likely, Georgia's going to trend a few points to the left again. It may even be voting relative to the nation or only a point or two. That means that if Trump wants to win the popular vote by 4, he'd actually have to win the popular vote by 2 points, possibly. Maybe even by 3 points for that to even happen in this election. Maybe even like 1 point possibly, depending on how fast it trends to the left. It actually has been slowing down a tiny bit, so maybe it only trends 3 points to the right, or to the left, or maybe even a point to the left. But Trump would essentially have to win the popular vote to even get that victory. But there's no way that Trump would be winning the popular vote by 2 and simultaneously lose North Carolina unless it trended 8 points to the left, which it's been basically stagnant for the past, basically 8 years. But then Arizona would have to trend ridiculously to the left. It would have to trend to the left by a huge amount. It would be voting relative to the nation. If Trump is winning the popular vote by 2, it would be voting to the left of the nation by 7. That means the state would basically trend 11 points to the left in a single cycle. And yes, you've seen trends like that in Ohio and Iowa, but with the way that you saw the trend stagnant there, you kind of could have predicted that something was going to happen. In Arizona, you've seen a consistent trend of 2 to 3 points every cycle. So then out of nowhere, for it to be 11 points just wouldn't make any sense. And looking at the state of Nevada, the state's also been trending to the right too. So there's no way that Trump's going to win the popular vote by 2 and only win the state by 1 point. It's going to be voting to the right of the nation. It already has been. So there's really no way that the state is going to be voting to the left of the nation. It used to, and it actually consistently has been trending. And I mean, it did trend really, really hard to Obama from 2004 to 2008. That definitely did happen. But we saw it went from 5 points to the left of the nation by 2.8, and then in 2016 it was essentially tied, and then in 2020 it was actually voting to the right of the nation by 2. So it's probably going to vote to the right of the nation by 3 or 4, probably even 5 points. So if Trump's even losing the popular vote by like 1 or 2, he should be winning the state of Nevada. He could probably even lose the popular vote by 4 or 5 and probably still even win Nevada. So the fact that they have him only winning Nevada by 1, but simultaneously having him losing North Carolina but winning Georgia by 4, but losing Arizona by 5, literally doesn't make any sense with the state trends. And they actually released a national poll that has Harris up by 1. So yes, this trend here in Nevada, it being red would make sense, but except it's not going to vote 2 points to the right of the nation. It's probably going to be more than that. And then you're telling me that Arizona's going to vote 6 points to the left of the nation, and then Georgia is going to somehow only trend, it could trend to the left by 1. That's like the only realistic poll based off their Harris +1 national environment. But then North Carolina is out of all of nowhere going to just trend like 8-9 points to the left. But then the Rust Belt's going to all trend like 6-7 points to the left out of nowhere after it's been trending to the right for years. That's why these state polls do not matter. That's why these state polls are very, very confusing. Now, if you have a candidate like Trump leading by 9 or 10 in Wisconsin, then it's like, okay, yeah, he's probably up in Wisconsin. Or if he's up by 10 or 12 in Georgia, you could say, okay, he's probably up in Georgia. If Arizona, if Harris was up by, 10, 15, you could be like, okay, that's a little iffy, but she probably is up in the state of Arizona. She's probably not up by 15, but she could be up by maybe 5. Same thing goes for Wisconsin. If Trump's up by 10, he's like, okay, maybe he's not up by 10, but he's definitely up by more than 5. Same thing goes for that Georgia thing that I was talking about. If you see North Carolina a poll with Trump ahead by 10, you could say, okay, maybe he's not ahead by 10, but he's definitely up by more than 3 or 2. So that's kind of how you look. And polls are really meant to see trends in states rather than actually take the numbers at face value. Like if you see a polling shift, clearly there was a momentum boost for either candidate in either direction, depending on how the polls move. But to take the numbers at face value really just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so I hope you guys did understand this explanation as to why the latest state polls for the New York Times essentially do not make any sense. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe for more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video.